I'm literally like his most prized possession. I am just totally for him, and that's it.
But this kind of sounds like controlling behavior.
Can't you see that that's a problem, Tigerlily? You're a person, not a possession. But while Tigerlily has convinced herself that she somehow now loves being controlled by Adnan, the opposite is true when it comes to Veah and Sunny.
So you want me to become Muslim? Like, is that what you're trying to say? I won't ever change myself to be with somebody. So, as much as I love Sunny, I won't ever convert for him.
Veah has absolutely no plans to be forced into doing anything, and Tigerlily should probably take notes from this lady half her age. But before we get to the Sunny and Veah drama, and before we meet Niles and Matilda, let's start this recap with Tigerlily and Adnan. So tonight is the night of their wedding party, and Adnan hasn't held back. There's gonna be over 200 people in attendance, but the day starts with conflict. You see, when Tigerlily's glam squad come to help her get ready, Adnan suddenly reveals that his wife can't be alone in a room with a man, ever.
I can't leave Tigerlily with another man, like in a one room alone. You know, this is rules in Arabic and in Jordan.
I did not know that.
Is that really the rules, Adnan? Or is that just your interpretation of the rules? Still, Adnan then goes on to ask Shay to make sure that her husband, Chris, is never left alone with Tigerlily. Keep in mind, right, these guys have all been friends for over 20 years. Adnan's been on the scene for, what, like 2 minutes? And already his imposing rules that directly affect their friendship and actually go further than that. They insinuate that Chris can't be trusted, and frankly, it's insulting. But as Adnan leaves to get ready in his brother's hotel room, it's at this point that the videographers arrive, and immediately you can see that there's a double standard.
When I open up the door and I see that the videographers are men, I am a little bit confused because I am not supposed to be around men.
Adnan was the one that arranged for these videographers. So does that make it okay? Is it only okay when he arranges it? When he says it's okay? Like, maybe Tigerlily needs an instruction manual or something, because these rules are pretty confusing. Now, Tigerlily tries to take Adnan's rules as seriously as she can. She tries her best to respect them. Why? Well, because bizarrely, perversely, she tells us it makes her feel special.
I'm literally like his most prized possession. And I like it because it makes me feel like, oh my gosh, he loves me that much.
But this kind of sounds like controlling behavior.
And to that, Tigerlily says she doesn't feel controlled. And that's that. That's the end of the conversation. So as the group then start getting ready, Tigerlily insists that Shay doesn't leave her side, not even for a second. Shay can't even put on her own dress or do her own makeup. Yeah, much to Shay's disappointment, surprise and sheer annoyance, Tigerlily's clearly taking Adnan's rules very seriously.
I'm gonna get dressed in my dress.
You can't leave.
What about if I get dressed in here?
Now, Tigerlily asks the videographer to leave while they get dressed, and you'd have assumed that coming from a very strict background, this should be a request that the videographer hears frequently, that he'd just abide by, right? Well, no, wrong, because the videographer is actually very hesitant to stop filming. He just kind of grumbles about having a job to do. He says because he's here on the job, that whole alone rule doesn't apply.
If you have a job, then it's okay.
No, because Cruz has a job, the hair person has a job, and that's not okay.
But now Tigerlily's even more confused, because surely if that was the case, the hairstylist that came yesterday was just on a job too. So what's the difference? What are these rules and where's that handbook? Because I think we all really need it at this stage.
Clearly, something is getting lost in translation when it comes to Adnan's rules, and and I'm not really sure why some things are okay and some things aren't.
So I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see whether or not those male videographers really were okay. Because I tell you what, if they are okay, then I can't see how Adnan isn't being a hypocrite here. But let's just hold fire until we hopefully get a bit more clarification about these rules. Either way, after what seems to be an exhausting attempt at getting ready, it's now time for Adnan and Tigerlily to both see each other in their wedding attire. Here we have two attractive people being attracted to each other. Sorry, but I think that's as far as it goes. I really don't think it goes very much deeper than that. And if that's the case, that just means it's all gonna go downhill from this point onwards. But we'll leave that for another episode because it's time to move on. So let's check up on Sunny and Veah. You see, Veah is setting off for South Africa to meet Sunny for the very first time in less than a week. And she's decided in her infinite wisdom to bring along her ex-boyfriend with her.
Sunny doesn't know that I'm bringing my ex-boyfriend Rory on the trip with me, and when he finds out, it could mess up everything, but I think it's gonna be fine.
Here's a suggestion. If you're worried it might mess everything up, maybe don't do it. I know, crazy, right? Now, despite the fact that Sunny and Veah have been in a relationship, talking, showering together, probably planning this whole trip for over a year, it's only today that they decide to discuss whether or not Sunny has told his parents he and Veah will be staying in a hotel together. Yeah, a little bit ironic, isn't it? Especially given she hasn't told Sunny her ex is going to be staying in that hotel too. But Sunny goes on to say that no, he hasn't told his parents. Why? Well, because they're pretty strict Muslims. They'd never approve. But, Veah tells us, Sunny himself is a lot more relaxed when it comes to religion. He drinks, she tells us. He goes out clubbing. But while that may be the case, that doesn't stop his parents from still wanting him to marry a good Muslim girl.
So, you want me to become Muslim? Is that what you're trying to say?
I don't want you to become Muslim, but I will, as your boyfriend, I will ask you.
Now, Veah admits that while she does believe in God, she's sceptical about religion. She tells us how she was brought up. She was adopted by a very religious foster family, and the controlling nature of her upbringing has left her deeply traumatized, she says. And that now means she vows she'll never change for anyone.
I won't ever change myself to be with somebody. As much as I love Sunny, I won't ever convert for him.
My family's important, babe, you know that.
Now, the next time we catch up with Veah, it's nearly a week later. In fact, she's due to fly out tomorrow. And guess who's just arrived in town? Yeah, her ex, Rory. Rory reveals that he and Veah dated for 2 years, but they've known each other for 6. We've travelled together before, he tells us. We're incredibly close friends. So, I don't know, maybe he is the best person to look out for her on this trip. Maybe there are no ulterior motives and is there strictly to look out for her best interests. But you've got to say, it's interesting how it really didn't take much to convince him to come.
I'm just amazed how I got roped into this. You want to go to South Africa and help me meet this kid? I thought it was just the oddest thing, but I said yes to her.
So she asked him and he said yes, and yet he's still surprised by how he got roped in. I don't know, there's something going on here. Notice how he immediately calls Sunny a kid. He's emasculating Veah's new boyfriend before he's even met him. It's as if he's going in there with an agenda, and if that's the case, this trip is set to be a disaster. And as they go to get a coffee, we learn just how deep their past really goes.
Rory's been with me through a lot of things in life. He knows all the struggles I've been through with my family, and he was there for me during the worst time of my life.
What kind of struggles exactly? Well, Veah goes on to reveal that her mum is currently homeless. And in fact, she opens up about how her birth brother, the brother who she bounced around with in foster care and was also adopted by the deeply religious family, was tragically shot and killed by law enforcement. And it was during that stressful, traumatic time that she and Rory also had some very sad news of their own.
Around that time, me and Rory were pregnant, and we ended up losing our baby. Traumatic experience like that either makes you closer or it breaks you.
That's a terrible thing for them to have to have gone through, and you've got to imagine, at least in part, there must be some kind of trauma bond there. But still, even with that being the case, for as heartbreaking as that is, it still blows my mind that Veah thinks it's a good idea to take her ex, who she has so much history with, to now meet her current boyfriend, who she doesn't have history with. It feels very selfish and frankly very unfair to Sunny.
Makes me feel a little uncomfortable going into this situation. We don't know what his reaction's gonna be with me being there. Like, what if goes south?
Oh, I think we all know it's gonna go south, guys. Bringing an ex with you means this is going to the South Pole, especially given that we've been warned Sunny may have a temper on him. Yeah, let's see how that pans out, because already Rory seems to have quite an aggressive vibe to him. I think he and Sunny are definitely gonna clash.
I don't want Veah to get hurt by this kid. I just want to make sure you're making the right choice. And if he's around, he needs to get it straight.
But we'll leave that for now and move on to our newest couple, Niles and Matilda. Now, there's no other way to put this other than to say Niles is a major nerd.
I'm really into role-playing and fantasy games because you can do anything. You can make your own rules. You can play any character.
Growing up, Niles tells us, he always knew that he was different, so it came as no real surprise when he was diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Now, Niles tells us that he has a heightened sense of smell and sound, and that causes him to often get overstimulated. He can also be very blunt, and because of that, he's found it very difficult to have romantic relationships. That is, until he met Matilda.
Matilda is my girlfriend. She is 23 years old. She lives in Ghana, and we've been dating for the last 2 years.
So how did these two lovebirds meet? Well, they met on social media, and as it turns out, it was Matilda who slid into Niles' DMs out of nowhere, which already is a little bit suspicious as he's not exactly the stereotypical hunk, is he? Either way, Niles is clearly head over heels in love with Matilda, and she also feels the same. She's told him that she fully accepts him for who he is.
She makes me feel that I'm someone worthy of having a marriage, of having a family, of having happiness. And you know, that's really all I have ever wanted.
It's cute, it's so sweet, and I really want this to work. But this is 90 Day Fiancé. It's not exactly like there's a good track record of relationships lasting, is there? Now, while Niles tells us he's gonna be flying out to Ghana in a week's time to meet his love in person for the very first time, I hate to say it so early, but it all sounds just a little bit suspicious.
I am thinking about bringing her over here to America.
Right now.
Not right this instant, but she wants to get married on this trip.
I'm sorry, what? These two haven't even met in person yet, and yet already Matilda is telling Niles she wants to get married immediately upon his arrival in Ghana. Yeah, tell me that isn't suspicious as hell. Tell me that doesn't sound like someone who might be taking advantage of Niles. Even though, and yes, it's true, it was Niles who was the one that proposed over the phone 5 months ago.
Things are going quite quickly here. To my surprise, she has gone full steam ahead and is planning everything for a wedding during my trip to Ghana. It's stressing me out.
Niles, come on. You're a fully grown man. You're an adult. You also deserve some of the blame here. You proposed to her, and now you're stressed that she's organising a wedding. Like, come on. What did you think was going to happen after you proposed? If you weren't sure, if you didn't want to get married, if you wanted to meet her first, maybe you shouldn't have proposed to her. So, given that that's how Niles feels, you'd hope that he'd discuss this with Matilda. He'd maybe tell her to slow things down, right? Wrong.
I'm worried that if I tell Matilda that we'd have to postpone the wedding, she'll just end things right here, right now.
I think you need to have a real honest conversation.
Niles' plan right now, and it's a terrible plan, is to wait until he's in Ghana to tell her he doesn't intend to marry her on that trip. Yeah, you already know how badly that news is gonna go down. So why doesn't he just tell her over the phone? Why doesn't he pluck up his courage to just be honest with her? Well, Miles tells us that it's to do with his autism.
I really want to tell Matilda, but every time Matilda brings up the wedding, I get overwhelmed and I end up masking as a result.
Masking, says Niles, is something that autistic people do. They mirror what they think is the correct way to act in a situation, but it's not actually what they want. They put on a mask, they're acting, and that is what Miles tells us he's done. Now, when Matilda calls him while he's out working, while he's door dashing, Miles tries to be honest about his feelings.
We're gonna have our wedding, yeah. I hope you will not disappoint me.
Niles tries, right? He really does try. In his own way, he hints to Matilda that they maybe need a bit more time to plan the wedding out. I want our wedding to be as good as it can possibly be, he says to her. I want it to be so good, so special, he tells her, that God uses us as an example to anyone else getting married. But unfortunately, because it's not overt, because he doesn't actually say it, Matilda doesn't seem to pick up on the hidden meaning here. She tells him he's so sweet, she's so lucky to have such a supportive husband to be. I love you more than you love me, she reassures him. And with that, she goes on to say that our wedding is gonna be at the end of your trip. That's it. It's all been arranged. And unfortunately, that leaves Niles once again shelving the conversation.
I know that I'm gonna have to come clean in Ghana, and I know she's not gonna be happy. All I can do is pray that she understands.
I wouldn't bank on it, Niles. That seems like a very brutal way to break the news to someone. Someone who's planned an entire wedding, invited friends, family and church members. No doubt bought a fancy dress expecting to get married. That you've changed your mind. Yeah, I don't expect that news to go too well.